Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fast Football and Philosophy with me, Dr. Adam Foxon.
Me, Professor Jack Cunningham.
And this is the podcast even where we combine philosophy and football, and we are guaranteed to make you the smartest in the... I don't know why I'm laughing at that, Jack. We are guaranteed to make you the smartest in the pub. Last week we discussed Hobbes and Rousseau and the social contract, and where did we place, Jack? Are we team Rousseau or are we team Hobbes?
I think we said in the end we are Team Rousseau, unless a sponsor comes along, millionaire sponsor from a dodgy country, and then we'll transfer our loyalties if they throw some money at us.
Just name that dodgy country, Jack, for us.
I wouldn't like to, because I don't know whether I'm going to be visiting there one day, you know.
Very true. Very true. We don't know what employment opportunities are going to come around.
Exactly. Yeah. I want to be able to get through customs.
In fact, actually, Arsenal have recently been taking some flack because they've been quite supportive of some dodgy countries recently, and they've been taking a lot of flack for that, and they've been taking a lot of flack more permanently because of the terrible football they've been playing recently. Now, quite fortunately for us, Jack, last week we were relating the social contract and Hobbes to football in general, but we've been speaking about Spurs recently, haven't we? Yeah. And Spursiness and bottle jobness and all the rest of it, quite a lot. And they did beat Spurs. They, quite handily actually. I mean, Spurs were quite good for the first half an hour or so, and then they battered them after that. So you never know, things might be on the up for Arsenal. But really, if we were to look at the way that they've been playing recently, they are on a downward trend. And so I've got some facts and figures for you, Jack, just to throw in there, just to set the scene a little bit, the footballing scene. So in the last 5 seasons, right, the people who are closest to Arsenal on the table, they have never been able to get more points than them in the last 12 games of the season. So in 2021, they got the same amount of points as Man City, 24 points from the last 12 games. In 21-22, Man City got 30 points and Arsenal got 18. Then it was in 2022-23, 31 points for Man City, 21 for Arsenal. 23-24, 32 for Man City, 31 for Arsenal. And then last season it was 23 for Liverpool, 21 points for Arsenal. So we also have this impression of Spurs being Spursy, like what the Swedish member of Parliament was talking about, and how Sweden needs to stop being Spursy.
Yeah.
Well, really, actually, it could be Arsey, Jack. It could be the fact that Arsenal are doing really badly. What do you think?
Yeah. I think people were holding out for this season, aren't we? We're just kind of saying we're not going to use that adjective just now, but we're storing it, aren't we? If they bottle this at this time around, we'll be using that term in the summer. Believe me, it won't be just the Swedish parliamentary representatives using Spursy. We'll all be using Arsey as an adjective to describe bottling.
Well, I mean, they're 5 points on the table now, clear from Man City. But Man City have a game in hand, which means that they can go within 2 points, and they are still yet to play each other. So essentially, it's in Man City's hands. If they win the rest of their games, their 11 or so games left, they will win the title. And then Mikel Arteta's job is up for grabs. I don't know how he could continue in the job after being. I mean, it was Jose Mourinho who referred to Arsene Wenger, probably Arsenal's greatest ever manager. I would hazard a guess at, and he said that he was a specialist in failure. And I think Arteta could be getting into that territory, to be honest.
Yeah.
But what can we say about Arsenal's plight? The fact that they seem to be struggling a lot. Is there anything that we can talk about philosophically? And with that can kind of at least describe what's happening with Arsenal at the moment.
Well, I've been reading quite a bit of Nietzsche in this past while, Adam, and I think the concept of the Ubermensch, the Superman that Nietzsche comes up with, I don't know whether you can apply it to Arsenal or to football at all, but if you do, it is certainly interesting. So I think that we could have a look at good old Friedrich and see if we can see if that's got anything to say for this potentially sorry situation.
Okay, so just explain to me what Ubermensch is, or just kind of give me a brief background as to who Nietzsche is and what he says.
Yeah, okay, so Nietzsche is born in Prussia in 1844. He's a real bit of a superstar, not at school actually, but when he gets to university, he really is very, very impressive. He becomes, Adam, get this is gonna hurt. He becomes a professor of philology, not philosophy, philology at the University of Basel. Age of 24, mate. Age of 24. I mean, you can only I think I was 59 when I became a professor, and I thought, wow, way to go. Yeah, you really clinched it, didn't you? Really nice and early. 24, Adam. He's 24 years old.
It's not bad.
Okay.
Not bad.
He only lasts 10 years, though, because poor old Friedrich, for one reason or another, could have been syphilis. It could have been migraine headaches. He's ill. He's ill all the time, and he has to bail out of that job. And then he spends his time between Switzerland and the south of France trying to chase good climate because of his condition. He ends up in Turin and at the age of 44, and he just goes mental. He goes berserk, and two police officers have to accost him for creating a disturbance. And it said afterwards that he saw a man mistreating a horse, and he ran to the horse, threw his arms around it, tried to protect the horse, which kind of, like, if you know about his lifestyle, doesn't really fit in with it, this kind of compassionate bit of a softie. Because when he writes, he doesn't write like that. He writes like, somebody who thinks that people should be kind of a lot more aloof and cold even than that, and a stronger person. But there he was, sobbing his little heart out because the pony was getting whacked in Turin. So that he ends up his life mentally ill, and he's looked after by his family and
he does die of syphilis, right? I'm pretty sure that's how he died.
I think it's not completely uncontroversial, that though. I think there are people
right.
and there's
it would explain his views on sex, right?
It would. Then you've got to throw into it the conjecture about homosexuality. He was supposed to have picked up syphilis in a brothel. Was that a male brothel? And all the rest of it, So there's a lot of question marks floating around him, but certainly a very interesting character. He tears up the textbook of kind of like Western civilization. Okay, so that starts with Socrates, right? And he says Socrates is a vortex of Western civilization, a whirlpool that kind of dragged us all down. And he doesn't like, he admires Socrates' personal ethic, but he just does not like what Socrates brings to the Western world. And that is somebody who says that you should use reason and logic. Okay, you should be a rational person, and you should be aesthetic as well. You should shun the world. And before that, in The Birth of Tragedy, Nietzsche is saying, before that we had a Dionysian Greek ethic. It was artistic, it was passionate. Remember we talked about Dionysius before? He is the god of drinking and debauch.
Yeah.
And that's what when we lost that as our working ethic with Socrates, we lost our vibrancy and our passion, and it was the start of a slave morality, which gets worse when we get to Jesus. Once again, he does like Jesus. He says, in fact, he's the only Christian that ever lived. But he doesn't like his morality, which he says produces a slave morality. All right, because it's all that kind of Sermon on the Mount stuff. The meek will inherit the earth. All that stuff about the first should be last and the last should be first. This promotes a slave mentality, according to Nietzsche, where we kind of say, no, you go first, and we're modest and we kind of cower before this God, and that makes us uncreative. It dampens our potential, and this is a disaster for humanity. So what's the solution to all of that, Adam? Well, it's the Ubermensch, the Superman. And the Superman is going to replace man, has to replace man. Okay? So he says there's an evolution, a three-stage evolution. You get the camel at first that carries the burden of tradition. And then you get the lion who tears up and devours tradition. And then you get the child who creates things anew. And the child is the Ubermensch. He will have shaken off the herd mentality. He would have shaken off the type of ethic that dampens our potential. And we will become artistic, creative. Man will be replaced by the Ubermensch. And he says, this is a nice one, Adam. You'll like this one. What is the ape to man? It's a ridiculous creature. We laugh at the ape. Man will become that to the Ubermensch. We will produce this Superman who will laugh at this idea of this slave morality infested mankind. So that's what the Ubermensch is, and people kind of love this. They particularly in the 1960s, existentialism, postmodernism, art world, literature did really latch on to this idea of the creative ideal. I met one once, Adam. This is my first encounter with a Superman.
Okay.
I'm doing my PhD, right, in Ireland, and you know when you're doing a PhD, you'll know that you teach class, don't you? So I'm teaching a group of second years, and there's a guy in the class who's on a year with us from America called Dean, right? Dean hands in his first essay, and I mark it. It's a belter. It's so good, written so well, and it's adventurous in its thought, and it's anyway. It ticks every academic box. I am given those days. It wasn't electronic, so you're given the essays back, and I'm in this group, and I give Dean his essay back, and I say, Dean, that was an outstanding essay. Now, if I'd done that to the Irish students, they would have had the kind of Christian ethical background that they were born out of, and they would have probably said something modest like, "Oh no, Jack, it was all right. Well, it was a one-off, or yeah." But they would have battered down the compliment. Dean didn't. Dean said, "Yeah, I know." I thought I'd test this, and I say, "Well, yeah, you are a really good writer, Dean. Yep, I know that, and highly intelligent piece of work. Yeah, I know." Later on, I find out that he's consuming his Nietzsche night and day. He's a Superman as far as he's concerned. Wow. The rest of the group, though, and this is what the Superman has got to endure, it's the loneliness of superiority. The rest of the group, the Irish guys in that group hated him. They hated Dean because he was arrogant. But he wasn't arrogant as far as he was concerned. He was.
But we get that archetype, and that archetype is actually really prevalent in contemporary culture. We always have that you're right, that kind of that lonely, arrogant person who just so happens to be a genius. You think of like that really stereotypical detective. He's a genius, but he's got demons. He's also an alcoholic because he can't deal with all the things that go off in his head all the time. And that archetype is there all of the time, isn't it? I've been rewatching House. House is the perfect Superman, isn't he? I think that makes total sense. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this is what the Ubermensch is going to be. And now listen to this, Adam. I put into AI, right, what an Ubermensch in football would look like. What would the Superman look like? And it came up with some interesting things. Let me throw a couple of these across your bows. Okay, the Ubermensch in football would not fit into conventional positioning. They would define their own role, make the game their own. Okay? Right. They would be artistic. They would have original creative flair. And this, most importantly, they wouldn't be a repetition of past legends. Remember the camel carrying the tradition, and then the lion comes along and throws off. That's what they're going to be like. They're going to have absolute self-mastery and willpower. They're not going to be afraid of the suffering of failure. And then they would embrace the intensity of the game and the loneliness of superiority. That is the Superman in football. I don't know whether anyone springs to mind there, Adam. But
they do, actually. I think the only one that I can think that really transcends tactical instruction is a Lionel Messi. So many people. Pep Guardiola is probably one of the greatest managers of all time. I mean, I don't think that is a controversial point of view. And he always said that he just kind of allowed Messi to do whatever he wanted to do. You just go away and you do your thing, on his own, like quite literally on his own, he could win El Clasicos. Like this guy is above everyone else. And if you look at his numbers, Cristiano Ronaldo is obviously absolutely incredible, like a ridiculous figure in football. But even even his goals to game ratio isn't the same as Messi's. You might say he's a more natural goal scorer, but the figures don't lie in this respect. And Messi scored more goals in relation to the amount of games he's played, and so I think, and he's also got a lot more assists and key passes and dribbles and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think Messi is probably the one. And potentially maybe even a Maradona, maybe.
Yeah. And for me, what all these people do, they've obviously got an extraordinary amount of skill, okay? But what makes them different is they do shake off expectations, and they do shake off the idea as well that it is good to be humble. Like, they are totally embrace the fact that they are Ubermensch, and they utterly believe in themselves. And with all the skill in the world, you're only going to be so good without that, without that utter self-belief. The Uberman replaces God. This isn't one of the solutions. Nietzsche says, God's dead. God's dead. So what do we do now? Well, we replace God, the idea of God, with the Superman. And these people do that. They're just kind of like, this is I am absolutely great to the point of divinity.
Did Nietzsche see himself as an Ubermensch?
That's an interesting one. He's poor old Nietzsche. He reminds me of he talks about the noble warrior all the time, and he says he talks about women in a very derogatory way. He says, "Goest thou to women? Don't forget thy whip." Well, he's a bit of a puny boy. And Bertrand Russell quite rightly says any self-respecting woman would have grabbed the whip off him and given him a sound thrashing. He's like that kind of wimpy guy who reads Soldier of Fortune in his bedsit, or who lives with his mum and kind of reads Soldier of Fortune and thinks of himself as plays games where he's a great warrior. But it's imaginary. Yeah. So this warrior figure, for him, is an ideal that he could never have achieved, and probably this is why he likes that ideal so much, because it's physically so much stronger than him. But he is a Superman in terms of braininess. He does all the things that a Superman does intellectually. He shakes off tradition and all of those kind of things. So when he says God is dead and we have killed him, yeah,
who is the we? Is it the Ubermensch? Is it society at large?
Yeah, I think both actually. There's both. There's two hands on the dagger there. The Ubermensch happily kill God, or the idea of God. They're happy to relinquish that. But the people who misinterpreted Jesus and said that this idea of love is self-deprecation, and it's humility, and it's obsequiousness, and what kind of came into Christianity and the Western world, and we subsumed this idea. And Jesus didn't mean that at all. It wasn't talking about that. So they killed the Christians in the Western world, killed Christianity as well. But
because that's what Nietzsche's trying to say, isn't it? He's not talking about God as in this kind of heavenly figure in the sky. He's talking about kind of all of the values and attitudes that. And our intellectual history that make us us. So it's everything that makes us us. It's everything that makes an Englishman an Englishman. It's everything that makes a German a German. It's everything that kind of holds us in together, and that's what's dead, right?
Yeah.
That's what needs to die anyway.
So the big question, which is the topic of this week for us, Adam, of course, is Arsenal. Are they Ubermensch or?
I don't think they are. I don't think they are Ubermensch, simply because they are not at. So in football, there's always this thing, right? There's always this thing about champions, and champions can always play badly and win, always. Now Arsenal, a couple of months ago, they went through a patch where I think their top goal scorer across 1 month was own goal, right? Because their opposition just kept scoring own goals, and they would win through these own goals. So they were just about getting through these games, and they were still picking up all the points that they could. But it was quite fortunate, and they were playing okay, and they managed to scrape by. When Manchester United were under Sir Alex Ferguson, the amount of 1-0s that they won was ridiculous. It was, because they could play badly and win, and Arsenal were doing that, but they can't maintain that. And that's what champions can do. There's this big thing about how champions can just get through the rough patches. And I don't think Arsenal can get through the rough patches like the Ubermensch. Because the Ubermensch will say it doesn't matter if I'm not playing as well as I can be. I'm still better than you. And yet, I don't think Arsenal can do that. I don't think they've got it in their mentality. Arteta has these really, really weird ways of going about things. So he's very keen on kind of doing things that are a little bit left field to try and instill some character in his players, right? So, for instance, they had this big kind of team meeting, like a gathering, like a meal that they all went out to, and he hired a pickpocket to go round and steal all the things from all his players, like their phones or their ties or whatever it might be, right? And the idea was, at the end of it, he kind of gave them all their stuff back and kind of outed the pickpocket and said, this is why it's really important to keep an eye on each other, right? And like work together as a team and be aware of your surroundings and all this kind of stuff. And when I can't remember who they played. I think they might have played Liverpool. And across the training, the pre-match training for that week, he was blasting out "You'll Never Walk Alone" with his massive speakers. Like he's not afraid to, and he's also very keen on. What is it? I can't remember what it is. It's absolutely naff. He's talking about how you have to play with your head and your heart, and he literally draws like smiley faces on whiteboards, and like you have to play with your heart, your brain, and it's just like it's so kind of corporate speak, and this kind of like blue sky thinking and all the rest of it that he has to get across to the players because he knows he has to impart that into them. Like he's trying to create some kind of like ersatz kind of team kind of camaraderie that champions have, but you can't create that. The players have to have that. That has to come from the players, and I don't think there's a single player in the Arsenal team that is a champion.
One of that sort of thing that struck me when you were talking about that, though, in that training with the pickpocket thing and the never walk alone thing, it's creating insecurity, and then you're supposed to respond to that insecurity. Like, if you're less, you look out for each other, you'll lose stuff. And this is a massive sound from Liverpool. Does it make you feel insecure? Well, overcome it. But I don't think that's Nietzschean. I think that if he was a Nietzschean manager, he would have been doing a lot more affirming stuff and showing them how brilliant they are and how wonderful, and this is massive celebration of their ability and their camaraderie and the way they gel together. And I know this is a big thing of yours about the manager's crucial. I think we should send him some Nietzsche, get him on the Nietzschean page, especially if he loses this season. We've got to get him to realise that maybe it's the Ubermensch that he needs to create, not the team he's creating at the moment.
I think it's quite important actually here, Jack, because we need to speak a little bit about nihilism. I think just a little bit, because I think lots of people know or think they know what nihilism is, and so I could suggest that Arteta is a passive nihilist, right? In that, so whenever I always teach Nietzsche, I always explain that kind of nihilism has two parts to it. There's passive and there's active nihilism. The passive nihilist is your stereotypical emo, right? It's the ones that stay at home and the world's shit and I hate everything and there's no point to anything, so what's the point in even trying, and that kind of thing, right? And Nietzsche is saying that's absolutely true. And so what's really important, and this is what the Ubermensch do, is they inject that meaning into the world, right? They create their meaning, that they become their meaning. And it kind of reminds me of that. Is it Jim Carrey who plays Yes Man, where he just says yes to everything?
Oh yeah.
He's really trying to like just live his life to the fullest. And there's that idea of eternal recurrence in Nietzsche, where there's this idea where you have to live, like if you come to a decision where it's either yes or no, if you pick yes, are you picking yes because you would, if you had to live your life again and again and again and again forever and ever, would you still pick yes? And if you and if no, then say no.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
Live your life as if you're going to have to live it again and again and again. And I think at the minute, Arteta is a passive nihilist. He's sitting in his room, he's listening to death metal, right? And he's just thinking, there's no point to the world, and he's screaming into his pillow.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem.
By the end of the season, if they're coming second, if you start wearing mascara, I think, and black lipstick.
Wearing knee-high socks. No, he already wears knee-high socks.
He already does. Keep an eye on his fingernails, Adam. If they turn up black, we know where we're going.
This is why all the best footballers wear the really the really small shin pads and the rolled down socks, because they don't want to be seen to be passive nihilists, Jack. That must be it.
It's a disaster. It's a disaster for a successful sporting person, isn't it?
and Arteta does wear all black all the time. So all he ever wears is black.
I think we've revealed something quite important in this episode. We urge our followers to keep a beady eye on this.
Keep an eye on Arteta. Keep an eye on his mental health. He needs to find some meaning in his life, and he also needs to be strong enough to will it. It's that will to power. That's what he needs. He needs to kind of get the energy to inject it into his players, but not in a kind of artificial way that don't just make them the people that they need to be. He needs to be more like a Liam Rosenior. He needs to age these men. That's what he needs to start doing.
Adam, we'll be taking all this back if they win the league, though, won't we? Well, let's face it, we might have to erase this whole episode, take it off.
Yeah, why did season 2 only have 9 episodes? I'm gonna stick my neck out now, Jack, and I'm gonna say that Arsenal are not going to win the league. I'm saying it now. I'm putting it out there now, and I know that we have some very, very loyal Arsenal supporters in our listenership, and I apologise to them all sincerely. But your team's not going to win the league. It's just not. They're just not. They are just not Ubermensch. What do you think, Jack? Like, from what you know.
Yeah, so I think it might be. I'm not going to completely contradict you, but I might kind of put in a qualifier there and say, I'm trying to think of a phrase that will encapsulate this, but it is a habit of thought built on past experiences. So we think they're not going to do it because they haven't done it previously. But that's not a very philosophical approach to life in general. Like, just because things happen in the past have tended to happen like this, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to happen like that in the future, especially in things like sport. We're not talking about the seasons of the year here. We're talking about something that is different every single year. And a football team is not like that. A football team is like we know from the ship of Theseus, a different thing. And so maybe we're just thinking, no, of course Arsenal won't do it, because that's how our mind has been trained by past events. But let's be a bit cynical with that way of thinking, I think, and say it's not an ideal way to approach the happenings of the world.
I think actually, Jack, you're hitting on something there that could be a future episode, because so whenever I teach on and that kind of idea that we can't really tell what's going to happen in the future is something that we tend to refer to as the classic problem of induction, isn't it? And in this kind of idea that we kind of have to rely on what came before to inform us about what's going to happen in the future, because that's really the only knowledge that we have. But it's not definitive, and so actually that I think we could probably play around with that and bring in a bit of David Hume, cause and effect, that kind of thing, and then we can apply that to football. I think that's a great episode, but not what we're going to be doing next week. Because next week, for absolutely no reason whatsoever, we're going to be doing a World Cup special, aren't we, Jack?
Yeah, we thought we'd get in there early. We're like the shop that has Christmas in October.
Hey, but they're always full, aren't they?
They're always full.
So we're going to be talking about a philosophical idea known as imagined communities, and we're going to be going back to Hobbes and the social contract, and we're going to be talking about and exploring the idea of nationality and who players should declare for in terms of their international duty. Because, and Jack knows this, and there's been plenty of players who have been English but not good enough to play for England, who have played for Ireland. And there's been a couple of Irish lads who play for England because England's a better club, a better nation footballing wise.
Take that back, and I'm not going to turn up next week.
And actually, that's why we need to still watch Saipan, isn't it, Jack?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, that's going to throw up a philosophical question or two, I think.
Anyway, if you enjoyed that conversation, then please do get in touch. Give us some questions. We had some great correspondence from one of our followers, Dan. And Dan sent us in a question, and we spent a long time, and Jack and I had a bit of a bicker, and we worked out a nice answer, and we gave down an answer to his question. And so we would really like more of that kind of conversation between us and you guys. So please do get in touch. You can comment on Spotify, you can comment on YouTube, you can send us a DM on Insta, you can even email us at fastfootballandphilosophy@gmail.com. There's all sorts of ways that you can contact us. Jack, we might have to get some kind of torch and do some kind of like bat signal, but like philosophy. I don't know, we could do all sorts of things, I guess. But I guess from here on, that's it, Jack. I think that's it for this week.
That's it.
We're over half an hour, Jack. We can't.
Oh, wow.
We can't do that.
That's more than enough. More than enough for anybody.
More than enough for anybody.
My mum would have tuned out 15 minutes ago, Adam. I don't know if we've kept anybody after that.
Fingers crossed we have. It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks a lot.